said that she won't be able to come home with us that day, that she'll have to go back to the jail and be processed or whatever to be released, but that she would be coming home within that week.
Yes.
He told you that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Ann, and this is Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors on YouTube. If you haven't already done so, please click my logo below and subscribe to Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors. It's free, and your subscription will help get Jennifer MEDZIE's story to more people. In episode 14, you heard Jennifer's parents talk about an interview with Pennsylvania State Trooper David Patrick that he conveniently left out of the police report, as well as their recollection of the worst morning ever. In the episode, I also discussed the criminal complaint written by David Patrick, the arrest of Jennifer MEDZIE, and what she said she was promised by William A. Shaw Jr., resulting in her writing a false statement. After the episode aired, I reached out to Bill Shaw with the following, quote, "Good morning, Mr. Shaw. I am an investigative journalist interested in shaken baby cases. I'm covering Jennifer MEDZIE's case in great detail. You can check it out on Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors on YouTube. I have all of the discovery and court documents. She recently told me that during your interview with her at the jail on August 25th, 2016, you said to her that if she gives you something, anything, that happened to Sophia the morning of November 15, 2013, then you will let her go home at her preliminary exam and she can go to church with her mother. I'm curious about your response to this accusation." Kimberly Ronan was a witness to this conversation as well. Also, with all of the new evidence regarding and debunking shaken baby syndrome, do you still believe that Jennifer MEDZIE is guilty? Are you aware that according to Sophia's autopsy report, her neck and spine were unremarkable and intact with no fractures or dislocations? I see that you are running for judge in Clearfield County. What do you think the community will think when this is all public and they have the facts of what occurred? Wouldn't it be quite honorable of you if you were to admit that due to new evidence and updated science, Jennifer MEDZIE should be freed from prison? Looking forward to hearing back from you. Regards, Lindsay Ann. End quote. District Attorney Ryan Sayers, expert Harry Camero, Attorney Robert Donaldson, and the county commissioners were all CC'd on this email. And as of this recording, I've heard nothing back. I also wanted to let you know that I was informed by one of our awesome listeners that Jennifer's trial attorney, Robert Donaldson, is married to a former news anchor for WTAJ, the same station that so poorly covered Jen's case, and with bias, in my opinion.
MEDZIE wrote emails saying she was so tired of watching Sophia, she wanted to hurt her or herself.
This child was pummeled. And in our view, right from the get-go, this was no accident.
MEDZIE was upset with Sophia because she wouldn't stop crying, so she shook her.
We have cleared the biological father of any wrongdoing, and I am confident and I support that conclusion that the biological father had nothing to do with this.
Shaw says the investigation took so long because of the large amount of scientific evidence to consider. While District Attorney Bill Shaw stated MEDZIE's story was inconsistent with the signs and medical reports, Donaldson says he was anticipating third-degree or involuntary manslaughter, so the verdict came as no surprise.
The state police stayed after this. They were tenacious in their investigation. They had to be, because a 2-year-old died from blunt force trauma to her head. That's not natural. Somebody is accountable for it. So, we had to keep at this thing. We had to keep pursuing this thing, and We had to get to the bottom of it, and as you can see, it paid off.
Now, Shaw says the maximum sentence for third-degree murder is 40 days. They will now have peace knowing MEDZIE will never have the chance to hurt another child. Reporting live at the Clearfield County Courthouse, Bridget McClure, 6 News.
Y'all, did you hear that? WTAJ News announced that Jennifer's own attorney said he went into the trial anticipating third-degree or involuntary manslaughter charges.
Reports. Donaldson says he was anticipating third-degree or involuntary manslaughter, so the verdict came as no surprise.
However, this is what Jen's parents recalled Donaldson telling them.
Oh my gosh, that's a bunch of crap, because he told us not to worry about it. He just kept telling Stuart, you tell your wife not to worry about it. Stuart went over there to sit in on some of the hearings and stuff that they were having, like jury selection, all that stuff. He wasn't allowed. He told him, you go home, I got this. That's what he said.
He didn't let you into jury selection? That again is your Sixth Amendment right.
Nope, wasn't allowed.
So you don't even know what questions were asked there?
No.
He kept saying, I got this.
Everything with this case is shady.
So Stuart would come home, and he'd say, he keeps saying, it's all right, he's got this, he's got her, and stuff like that. And it's like, and then we get,
So he didn't tell you, he didn't even prepare you at all. If this doesn't go how I'm expecting Jen to go home. Did he tell you I'm expecting Jen to go home with you today?
No, he didn't tell us that.
He said that she won't be able to come home with us that day, but she'll have to go back to the jail and be processed or whatever to be released. But that she would be coming home within that week.
Yes.
He told you that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And just where the murder thing was on his chart that he gave.
Yeah, I'll screenshot that for you.
He crossed it all off. Don't even worry about that. None of that's going to even happen. And she's never been in trouble before, so that's going to help her out.
Mhm. He just kept saying to us, we would ask him a question and he'd say, I know.
Makes me really wonder if he was part of the scheme to lock up Jennifer MEDZIE. Donaldson's wife's last sign-off on WTAJ News was on November 23, 2016. And then 7 weeks later, on January 13, 2017, the MEDZIEs hired Carolyn's husband, Robert Donaldson, to represent their daughter. At that time, Julie and Stuart did not know of their relationship. And then I also received this message last week from another listener. She said, quote, I wanted to say I just watched the last one, and I'm baffled that no one recorded that last conversation with Jen at the jail. Because Ronan, I believe is how to spell her name, but she came to question me in jail once and did not forget to bring a recorder. So yeah, it was intended to not be heard. Shaking my head. End quote. Every part of me believes this shady move was intentional, unlawful, and unethical. So prior to retaining Robert Donaldson, Julie and Stuart, along with the help of family and friends, first retained attorney Karen Muir to represent Jennifer. Jen was arrested on Thursday, and on the following Monday, her parents were in Karen Muir's office. I was curious as to why they chose her.
Julie's sister's the one that mentioned about her, said that she's a good lawyer. she's not in Clearfield County, so we figured, what the hell, we'll go that way, and everything we looked up about her seemed like it was good. So we made the appointment, and we called over and asked, and she said that we needed $12,000 something down, and then we could make the payments.
Karen was there for the preliminary exam, correct?
Correct.
And why did you guys not attend the prelim?
We were there. We were out in the waiting room. They made us go up, sit out there the whole time. And then she would come out and say, well, the baby had a broken arm and bruises everywhere.
Her pastor was there too.
I thought she said he even had a broken rib. And we're like, holy shit, it's just crazy. First time we ever heard any of that. Well, then said about waiving that, and that Shaw will talk about bail. And we're like, oh, that's cool, that, she's going to be able to come home pretty soon. And we waived the hearing then. Well, Jennifer.
So where was the preliminary exam? Because our Sixth Amendment right, that our constitutional right is to be at every hearing is public. So you guys should have been able to sit in there with the judge, with your daughter.
No, they wouldn't.
No, they would not let us back. We were there. Stuart and I was there, and our pastor was there. Then the Louders came. Cassandra Evans came, and the police. No,
at CCJ?
Yes.
So Karen was retained, and her first obligation was the preliminary hearing. Red flag, you guys. Karen Muir would not allow Jennifer's parents to be at the hearing. Y'all, it is our Sixth Amendment right to attend court hearings. When I went with Kate Evans' parents to Angie Ricketts' prelim at the Clearfield County Jail, that nosy woman Margie tried telling all of us that we could not go to the back and attend the hearing. If you've been to CCJ for a hearing, then you know exactly who Margie is. She's the one that claims to be a victim's advocate for District Attorney Ryan Sayers. She's the one that tries to make you give her your personal information and also plays along with the you can't attend the public hearing bullshit. Anyway, I spoke up and told her that it is our constitutional right to attend the hearing, and that if she doesn't allow us to go back there, then there needs to be a link so that we can watch it live. We were then all escorted into a room where Jerome Nevling stood, and we all viewed Angie as she was joining via Zoom from the Jefferson County Jail. Use your voice. You guys know your rights. And the other thing that I want to comment on is that you heard Stuart say that Jen waived her preliminary exam. I wish people would stop doing that in Clearfield County. It's a setup, in my opinion. The goal of a preliminary hearing is to determine whether there is enough evidence to proceed to trial. So you guys, by waiving it, you're acknowledging your guilt, or at least that there is enough probable cause that a crime was committed and that you are the one that committed it. According to ChatGPT, a prelim helps protect individuals from being subjected to full criminal trial without sufficient evidence. It gives both the prosecution and the defense an early look at the evidence and testimony that may be presented at trial. And sometimes it can lead to plea deals or even dismissals if the evidence is weak. Y'all, for the prelim for my sister-in-law's murder case lasted 2.5 days. And we learned so much and were presented a great deal of evidence. I highly recommend never waiving your preliminary hearing. Make the prosecution do their job. Hold them accountable for charging you with a crime. Let's get back to Julie and Stuart. You heard Stuart say that Karen Muir told them that Sophia had a broken arm. That's a flat-out lie. According to Sophia's autopsy report, the only marking noted regarding her arms is a, quote, faint purple bruise of the ventral left upper arm, 1.8 centimeters by 1 centimeter, end quote. How can they do this? I wonder how many people have been fooled by these crooks. It makes me so angry. In fact, I have an email that Karen Muir sent to Julie and Stuart saying, quote, the actual call of the list will happen much like the preliminary hearing. No family will be permitted to attend, end quote. Gross, Karen Muir. Gross. I'm going to play this next recording organically, with very little editing. Jennifer happened to call Stuart's phone while we were recording for this episode.
The criminal call list, that's...
No, Stuart wasn't allowed in there. He went to every criminal call over there at the courthouse, and he was not allowed in. He was not allowed in.
No, I have that in writing where she said the actual call of list will happen much like the preliminary hearing. No family will be permitted to attend. So that is, I mean, that's a huge Constitution violation. And
See,
they get away
with
with
that stuff because this is her. Nobody in our family. Yeah, and we trusted her. Nobody in our family.
You hired her. You hired her to know that stuff,
right?
Not, so something else. Sorry, I'm going to now revert back to what. So Karen told you that Sophia had a broken arm.
Yeah, broken arm. I'm pretty sure it was a broken rib. And there was something else. I don't know if it was a femur or something else. It was a fracture. Yeah.
At the preliminary.
Yeah. That Shaw was telling her all this stuff.
Yep.
So this kid was beaten.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow.
Because that's not what was on the news.
Right. Nothing like that was on there. So we didn't understand where all this came from, and Jen never mentioned any of that either, that they said to her.
No, because it wasn't true.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
But she says, you should be happy that, they're talking about bail. They're trying to let things calm down, and they're going to...
90 days. 90 days. We're going to let everything settle, let the dust settle, and then we'll see what happens in 90 days.
Okay, so that's what I was
talking about bail. Yeah.
Okay, so that's where I was going to get into now with the email. So I have in writing from Karen when she says, I know who the district attorney is relying on for their expert opinion, and that guy is a kook. Okay,
right.
Oh, okay. Is that how you say it? Kook?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kook.
Kook.
He's kook.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so she flat out says that guy is a kook.
Right.
Sorry, October 4th, she says, I'll go see Jennifer next week to talk a little bit about what I found in the discovery. And then she says on October 20th, I plan on going to see Jennifer this weekend so she and I can discuss.
Yeah.
And then
she never went to see her. She doesn't go outside.
Yeah.
She
So
never
from
went.
what, that's what I was wondering if she ever, because according to her final email to you guys, it appears that she went to see Jennifer on January 12th. How many times do you think she went, or do you know how many times she went and saw Jen?
Jen's on the phone, and she said she went at least twice, maybe 3 times.
Okay.
And in that time span, and it's like, that's their lifeline. Do you know what I mean? But the one time she missed going to see Jen, she said she had a migraine headache, but that's a bunch of BS because it was the Ohio State-Penn State game, and that's where her ass was sitting, was at the Penn State game.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so we gave her all that money.
And so does Jen remember her saying that Karen told her that she'd be home before her next birthday?
Does Jen remember Karen Muir telling her that she'd be home before her next birthday?
Do you remember Karen Muir telling you you'd be home before your next birthday?
I do.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I mean, all these people just
that
keep
was my next question.
all
Is
this
like,
stuff.
when did she tell her that? Do you know?
Wait, she's explaining that to Stuart.
And Donald told her that she really wanted to get charged with things.
Did Jen remember when she told her that?
I know, Jen.
Huh? Did Jen? What'd you say, Lindsay? Does she remember when she told her that?
Yeah, like when where was that in the process of?
Where was that in the process of everything that was going on with Karen Muir?
Do you remember when she told you about coming home before your birthday?
And Donaldson told her that nothing would really come of it, that she wouldn't get charged. I have the paperwork from Donaldson where he scratched off first degree. And he has marks underneath it. So if you want that, I'd be more than happy to send it to you.
Yeah, maybe just take a picture and screenshot it.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because Karen denies saying that she told Jen that she'd be home before her next birthday. And then also I have the email where you said, so Julie, you said, we were told by you that you would fight for our daughter and that you don't blow smoke. Well, since the first hearing at the jail for Jen, that's all it has been, one lie after another, 60 to 90 days, and bail would be set. And you would go see her in 10 days. Hell, that was over a month ago. So do you remember specifically Karen telling you, tell me about the 60 to 90 days thing.
When we were at the jail for her very first hearing, and Shaw said all the things were happening, that she had broken bones, our pastor was there, and she said, she came out and she said, Shaw is saying about 60 to 90 days because he wants the dust to settle, and we'll talk about bail. You know, Stuart and I went out and we just, not to tell anybody, don't tell anybody what's going on. Well, our families kept asking what was going on because they wanted to know. Well, we couldn't tell anybody.
Gosh. Yeah, because then her answer is, when I spoke with Shaw on the day of the preliminary hearing, he told me that if we waived the hearing, and then she put in, this is horrible, meaning that he didn't have to fight us on the charge, that he would consider a bail reduction at her next court hearing. But given the circumstances of the case, he could not agree to a bail reduction.
We didn't know, being just, I mean, we were never in trouble. We never knew that with the charges that she had, she would never get bail. I mean, we were going on hope. That's what we were going on, was absolute pure trust and hope.
Mhm. Yeah. And then, I mean, she clearly is lying there.
Yep.
And then she tells you guys, my concern is that all of you are discussing this case on the phone, which allows district attorney to know our strategy. What kind of strategy were you, if any, were you talking to Jen about on the phone? What was Karen's strategy?
We don't know.
Right.
We don't know. So, I mean, we just kept going over and over with Jen, like, what happened, or, you know, like if we'd go over and talk to that, I wouldn't talk to her because I'd get very upset.
Mm-hmm.
She were to talk to her, or I'd talk to her, or we'd do the email thing, so that way we could have a paper trail.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd try to communicate with Jen because she wouldn't.
Mhm. So in that first, okay, hold on. So then she also says, this is the day that you guys, I'm guessing this is the day you guys fired her because it's the same day that you hired Donaldson. But in her email, she says, I shared with you some of the damning statements that your daughter made when she was interviewed by the police. Do you remember what statement she's talking about?
No.
Yeah. And then she says,
we didn't know anything until you've been telling us stuff that nobody else has told us.
Yeah. She says the information that you gave me is certain. The information that you gave to me certainly is useful, but it doesn't change that your daughter admitted that she shook the child that day.
Mhm. That day.
Yes. Like
Where did she get that day?
Right. I'm going to ask her that. I'm sure I'm not going to get an answer, but I was curious where she would even get. And then in that same paragraph, she says, all you are doing is pushing her in a corner and letting 12 people who don't know her, but who will hear that she admitted she shook Sophia, make a decision about her life.
Yes. And saying that she should take the plea agreement if she wants a chance at life.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
That plays over and over and over in my mind all the time.
So then you guys get so you guys get this email from Karen on January 13, 2017. She sends it at 9:21 a.m.
Right.
And then that same day is the day that you signed the contract with Donaldson. So do you remember that whole process? Like what made you, so you get this email, is that what was the reason you got rid of Karen and how did that kind of go?
Well, she wouldn't go see Jen. She wouldn't talk to us. We had a very hard time getting in touch with her. The thing with Donaldson was I Googled lawyers, good attorneys. That's what it said. I did not want an attorney here in Clearfield County. I didn't. So I went to El Tuna, and he popped up because he was a deputy attorney general. So I thought, holy cow, he must really know what he's doing, because if he is, that's a pretty substantial job title to have,
Yeah.
And he was also the attorney for, I forget what food company it was over there. And I'm thinking, well, he must know his stuff. And we went over and we talked to him, and he said that we needed to get our money back from Karen Muir because the little that she did, she didn't use, she gave us back everything but $5,000.
So you Googled him and you found he looked prominent, he looked good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Did he tell you in the beginning, did he tell you his connection with WTAJ, with his wife?
No.
Did he ever end up telling you?
No, I did.
Did you mention it to him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was that like?
He loved to talk about himself. He told us all about how he ordered a Jaguar off of the computer and beat out a Nashville singer to get this specific car that he wanted. And he didn't go to church that day because his car was being delivered on a Sunday, thinking since all of his neighbors would be at church, they wouldn't, see it being delivered. But it blocked off the street with his car being delivered. So everybody knew what car, what he, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, he told us the whole story. And another thing he said was, the Penn State students over there, he said he could do 20 cases of a DUI. He said the parents, if they're willing to throw money at him, he'd take it just to get them off. And he said, and I would get them off of their drug, them being drunk. He could get them off that. That's easy money.
Oh. And he would just sit there and tell you guys this.
Oh my God, yeah.
He got somebody else off of, it was a big case over there.
No, it wasn't over there. It was down Lewistown way.
Well, he got him off, and he was all excited the one day I was talking to him on the phone, and he says, this is what we're going to do for your daughter.
Oh, my gosh. So when you brought up that his wife was Carolyn, did he say anything about that?
Not really, no.
Because to me, it just seems odd to me because, his connections there, and the poor coverage, it was very biased.
Mm-hmm.
There was no and we talked to MEDZIE. We talked to MEDZIE's family. There was none of that.
No.
They had no interest in, it was very biased broadcasting. Right. And so I was wondering if he...
I reached out to Karen Muir with a few questions. I'll let you know if I hear back from her. I was also very curious as to how Jennifer held up in jail, especially in Clearfield County Jail, where her story was all over the news, and she was being targeted as a baby killer. Take a listen.
Well, I was incarcerated at Clearfield County Jail, and while I was there, I ended up being the trustee of the block. And one of the girls that had been in, Kenzie, had Sophia tattooed on the side of her neck. And I asked her, who Sophia was. And she proceeded to tell me that it was her daughter and that she had been killed by her babysitter, but that no charges had ever come of it. And it had been years at this point. I was really shocked by the whole story that she was telling. I mean, most of us were, that nobody had been charged or anything at that point for the murder of her daughter, who was only 2. So that was, it kind of hit home with a lot of the girls that were in there because, she was so young and most of the girls in there had daughters.
Mm-hmm.
So
you were in with Kenzie, and then...
Yes.
Did Kenzie
ended up getting transferred, I think, to another prison.
Okay.
Yeah, she got transferred out. But, her story just kind of, it touched a lot of people that were there. I mean, it was pretty sad,
mm-hmm.
story to hear that nobody had been held responsible for. It was pretty unbelievable.
Did Kenzie ever say the name of the babysitter?
I don't remember exactly at that point. I don't believe that she did say her name, but pretty quickly after Jen was arrested, this was about maybe a month or 2 later,
mm-hmm.
that Jen ended up coming in and had been charged. And it didn't take long for everybody to figure out, put it all together.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of girls in there that were obviously had preconceived feelings about the whole situation. It wasn't a very safe situation for Jen to be in, considering,
Yeah, because so then Jen comes in, and how many blacks are there at CCJ?
2.
Women's? So 2. Okay.
Yeah.
And they chose to put her.
Yeah, they put her on the same block that Kenzie was on. So, it didn't go over very well in the beginning. It was very, and she was, by all means, saying that she was innocent, that she wasn't responsible for what had happened, and that didn't sit well with people either. So
because she wasn't admitting it.
she wasn't admitting it. And, you know, so, you know, people kind of wanted to know, the girls in there wanted to know, did she or did she not do this? You have, on one hand, you have Kinsey who tells the story. Then she comes in and she's denying it, and it just didn't go over well.
Yeah.
So,
do you think it was done purposefully?
I don't know. I don't know how much the guards. I'm sure. I mean, you only have two choices.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure, you know, even on the other block, like it didn't stop with just our block. I mean, you know, there were girls, we all talked, you know, went to yard together. And so, you know, I mean, no matter which one she would have been put on, it wouldn't have went well.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. That's true. So, you know, because we all intermingled and knew, you know, each other. And
yeah.
So, you know, to put, you know, everybody's mind at rest, you know, because Jennifer we could hear her on the phone with her family, or she would go to visits and her family would come and see her pretty much every visit. People would overhear her talking to her family and saying, you know, that she was going to be coming home. And they were like, you know, how does she think that she is going to be walking out of here? You know, so we took it upon ourselves one time when she went to church to go in and read her paperwork to find out, you know, what evidence that they had, or what was on the affidavit, what's truly being, you know, is she being charged with? And
so you can just go in and out of people's cells.
Yes. Yeah.
And so she went to church and
and we just went in and read her paperwork, and in her paperwork it said that she admittedly said that she, you know, had shaken Sophia in October, I think it was, but never in November.
Yeah.
And
2 times.
That just kind of solidified everything that Kinsey had been saying happened.
Right.
And like nobody understood how she thought, why she was saying that she didn't do it, or how she thought she was going home. And, you know, a lot of these girls hadn't seen their children in quite a while. You know, I know for myself it had been almost a year. And people were angry.
Yeah.
So I went to the warden and I just said, it's not safe for her to be, something bad is going to happen. You know, she's going to get her ass kicked. Basically, you know, these girls are not putting up with her, like, trying to deny that she did this when clearly she admitted that she did in the paperwork. Yep. Because a lot of people will do that when they come in with charges. They don't want that they know that they will get beat up or harassed or whatever. They'll hide their charges, you know, and say they're in there for something other than what they're really in there for.
So were girls talking about that you heard of, or maybe even you, when you talked to family or any of the other girls, is that how it really went around who she was, or was it because she was on the news, or was it, you know what I mean? Like, were family members saying, "Oh my gosh, you're in jail with this baby killer"?
Yeah, it was all of the above. And like I said, you know, it's small. I mean, they're small blocks. They're not huge. But you know, it was on the news, and like I said, Kinsey had been in there, so we had already heard the story from her perspective, and you know, and here's this girl who's coming in. And by all means, totally had never been, you could tell, had never been in that kind of situation before. Very quiet, and easily intimidated by other girls. And if that were the case, like, you know, nobody likes somebody who does something like that to its little girl, like, you know, or, I mean, a child in any way. So, of course, that's kind of the way it goes, you know, just like people who abuse children don't fare very well in the prison system.
But with Jen, was it more words when you say, like, they don't like it, or what do you remember kind of happening? And I know you were and I remember you telling me before that you kind of tried to.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I went to the warden to try to get her moved off of there because I didn't want anything to happen to her. I didn't want to see other people, you know, get in trouble either. And so I just knew, I could see that it was a growing and escalating under people who talk about it amongst each other. It's like, you know, I'm going to beat the shit out of her or whatever. So I knew eventually it was going to come to that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter of time. But the warden was not having it. He did not care. He said, you have to learn how to live with people who've done ugly things in jail, in prison, and you don't get to pick and choose. So deal with it. So he was not very helpful at all in that manner. But I knew it was like growing. And like I said, Kenzie did have friends in there, and we'd all had already heard this story, a heartbreaking story, prior to her getting there. So, and then here she's coming in here and just denying things and thinks she's going home. And it was like unbelievable. I just didn't understand why she would think that. I mean, she was convinced that she would be leaving there. And I didn't quite understand why. I mean, why she would think that she would be getting away with something like that and walking out the door is crazy.
All these people kept promising her that they were getting her out, and people who she had trusted. So she really thought she was getting out. And
I mean, I know, I could see it. And then, the devastation of like when her court date came and she didn't leave. I mean, she was very, very upset.
So you remember when she left for the arraignment?
Yeah. And she didn't go home, and she couldn't understand why. And I don't think anybody could understand why she thought that was happening. Right. Like she was so, and you could hear her on her phone talking to her family, like about her. She was talking about leaving, and I'm going to be coming home, and I was just like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Do you even understand the gravity of what is happening here? Because these are really serious charges, and you're definitely going to be here for a while.
So you were in with Jen for about a month. Is that
fair? I would say about a month and a half. I think I got out in September or October. And, she was so young, and looking back on it now and knowing what I know now, I feel horrible about some of the things that were said and done. And I know she was picked on, and I know, like, when they would shut those doors at night and you were locked in, and we would have, like, everybody would talk, say your nightly prayers or whatever together, and they would, say things about her. And I know she could hear them. I know she wasn't sleeping.
Can you give me examples? I'm curious. Like,
well, I mean, just like, just saying things like, just mean things, just anything mean that you could think of, just sarcastic things to say. And just because that person can hear you, and like I said, they were trying to intimidate her. They were trying to make her feel like a piece of shit, because that's what they thought of her, honestly. Because when you abuse a child or murder a child in that way, I mean, nobody's going to be nice to you. And rightly so. I mean, if you're guilty of that, like, I'm not going to be nice to somebody who did that too. Crimes against children are treated a whole different way when you're in jail.
I don't blame any of the inmates for thinking that. I don't blame the jurors. People ask me, like, Lindsay, don't you want to talk to the jurors? Well, yeah, I do want to talk to the jurors, but it's not their fault. They were given what they heard, what you guys heard when you were in
right,
county.
And we read the paperwork, and it said she admitted it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was no question in anybody's mind, like, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to be nice to you. Nobody's going to do you any favors. Nobody's going to help you. Nobody's going to protect you. So if something goes down, sorry, they're going to turn around and walk away. And they're going to see, I saw nothing. And they are definitely not going to do anything to help her or be nice to her or anything along those lines. That is not how it works.
Yeah, from what I've heard is that she just basically stayed in her cell the whole time. Is that what you
did? Because she was told if she came out, it would not be good. So you better stay in there. And she did. She came out for church and to go to her visits, and that was pretty much it. So that makes things, a lot harder, because it's already hard enough that you're locked inside of a building, but when you're confined to your cell, and I'm sure she was scared, because like I said, you could tell she was very innocent, young, and she was just quiet, and I'm sure that made things a lot harder. And she didn't know how to navigate and conduct herself, you know, like a lot of the other girls who have been in and out of there. So nobody wanted to be her friend. It was probably pretty lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then, you know, these things people are thinking horrible things about you, and I'm sure she was sitting there thinking, it seems to me like now, like I said, looking back and knowing what I know now, like they definitely coerced her into writing that statement. So had we not read that, she might have been treated differently. But at that point in our minds, like all the girls that were in there, she was guilty because she admitted that she was guilty. So nobody's going to be nice to her, and nobody was nice to her pretty much while I was there.
Sense. When you say, you know, you guys are in there, many of you having children of your own. Yeah, and then here you are like, all I want to do is see my child, and you're coming in and you're killing a child?
Yeah.
And that's what you're...
And you're crying and think you're going home every day. You're not going anywhere, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was pretty tense a lot of times. You know, after she had gotten there, it was a pretty tense situation because I just felt like at any moment somebody was going to beat her ass or something, and it was going to be... They were going to lose their cool, and it was just, you know... Thankfully, she was very quiet and stayed to herself. Yeah, because had she been a little bit more mousy or something, it might have gotten ugly for her. But they would not put her into protective custody, and they would not put her in to, you know, in by herself somewhere where she would have been at least safe. Yeah. So it was touch and go there for a little bit, but you know, I do feel bad now knowing what I know. I don't know how I could have done things differently, but I was, you know, part of that party too, and I feel bad that I even participated. But you know, you only know what you know, and that's what we read. So I mean,
absolutely. I mean, I remember when you first found out that, or I don't remember if you found out or if I told you that I was reading Jen's story, and you were like, Lindsay, I read the papers. Have you read the police report? And I was like, yes, I have.
I was just like, oh man, you know, she admitted it, and like that was a big deal, you know. And you know, a lot of times when you know, that's the first thing people want to see is your paperwork. Like, what are you in here for? What did you do? And so it didn't look good for her at all.
Well, and even
and I don't know much about what happened after I left, but while I was in there, you know, when she first got there, and it was, you could tell she was having a hard time.
Yeah.
And nobody really cared.
Right.
You know, they would just make fun of her for crying.
Yeah.
Or for, you know, thinking that she was going home when you're not.
Right. You just gotta find out a way to live, and
you do, and you find a way to get along. And people don't usually talk about, you know, why they're in there or whatever, but it does. People, I mean, it gets figured out.
Yes.
Like I said, looking back and now seeing those interviews of them interrogating her, is so wrong. I mean, they went about that whole thing just. I don't know. She was treated very unfairly.
Yeah,
and I think coerced into writing something she didn't do.
Yeah.
And at her age, like, I can't imagine being, you know, I was much older, so I can't imagine being that young and never been in trouble before, and these people coming at you like that over and over for such a long time. You know, like, eventually, you're just going to tell them whatever they want to hear just so they leave you the hell alone.
Yeah, let me go home. Go home.
Yeah, let me go home. And she thought she was going home. She was convinced. And then when she came back in from the hearing, she was just devastated. But nobody really cared at that point. Like I said, nobody liked her. Nobody wanted anything to do with her. That just seems really unfair, and I hope she gets some justice in the end, because I really don't think she needs to be sitting in there.
Yeah.
I think she sat in there far too long already.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. If there's
had we known that, had we not read that in her paperwork, then, you know, there's people in there that might have given her some support or, you know, tried to help her, you know, deal with not ever experiencing this stuff, you know, that's normal, or don't get, you know, upset about that, it's going to happen, or, you know, just things like that. Like, it's good to hear some, at least some positive things while you're in there, but she didn't get any of that. Unfortunately.
No. And I mean, that's how it was all meant to be. That's how the media wanted it to be. That's how the prosecution wanted it to be.
Right.
That's how it was. And
I do remember one girl being like, well, kind of trying to stick up for her. She must have had a conversation with her or whatnot, like on a more personal level. Maybe she knew her prior. She was like, you know, you don't know her story. And the other girls go, I don't want to know her story. I know enough. You know, I don't want to hear anything else from her. So, you know, there was like, you know, maybe one or two girls that tried to stick up for her somewhat, but it wasn't going to fly.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my experience with Jennifer and CCJ.
Yeah. And then anything that you, now knowing what you know?
Yeah, after watching and knowing all of this stuff now, like, I just feel like not only has Sophia still has been an injustice, because I don't feel like there's been anything resolved there about what really the real problem was. You know, and that's just my personal opinion, you know. I don't feel like anybody has the real answer still. You know, like her family. I think they must believe that, you know, Jennifer obviously is responsible. So it would be nice for them to actually know the real truth, and, you know, for her to not be sitting in there for something that she didn't do, because I really don't think she did anything to hurt her.
Right.
But again, that's just my personal opinion from what I know.
Right.
What really killed me was, honestly, I could not believe how she told Jen that Sophia was no longer alive.
Oh my God.
Like, she said it like it was like, she's dead.
I know.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Yeah, well, she's dead. And Jen was in total shock. And like, can I give you a hug?
Yes. She didn't even.
That broke my heart.
Yep.
Honestly, like, you could tell right then and there, I was like, that girl does not have it in her to do what they said she did. She just doesn't. You could tell. And how they couldn't see that, I don't know. Because she just wasn't capable. I hope you guys get some answers, and I hope it gets, you know, she gets out of there and it gets figured out, because still Sophia does not have justice.
Right.
Because it's not what happened. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
And I think that's what needs to be found out, and so it can be put to rest and Jennifer can get out of there.
Yep. For sure.
So.
I also made contact with another person who met Jennifer at CCJ.
So my name's Alyssa. It's a bit of a funny story about how I ended up with Jen in Clearfield County Jail. I wasn't a hardened criminal. I was through some things when I was younger and ended up on drugs, and I'm 10 years clean this year. So
congratulations.
Thank you. And so it doesn't happen often in jail or prison, but I don't remember what caused it. But they were going to switch. There's 2 girl blocks at CCJ, and something had happened not long after I got in there, and they were going to like switch, take half the girls from one block and put them onto the other block and do like a switch. And my sister was a 911 dispatcher in Clearfield for almost 25 years before she passed. And so I knew a lot of the people in the county, a lot of the guards, a lot of those types of people. So I knew a lot of the guards going in there. And one of them had pulled me aside, and I knew of the quote-unquote baby killer that was on the other block. I didn't know much about her. I don't read the news. I judge people based off of how I meet them. And So I don't read into any of that. So I got pulled aside by one of the guards that I knew pretty well, and she had asked me if I would mind rooming with Jennifer MEDZIE. And I was like, well, I don't care, who is that, And she gave me the information that she could give me. And they were, to me, it was like the guards were trying to protect her, because they didn't like straight up say it, but like, I don't think the guards even thought that of Jen. And like I said, the guard that I knew, she knew me. I'm a kind person, and so we ended up. I got roomed with Jen, and at first it's always it's awkward. You're in jail and you don't know what to talk about. And you don't know whether you can trust people and all that kinds of things. But
so was this early on when do you remember what year this was?
When I had got roomed with her, it was like it was not long after she was convicted. And
between the trial and the sentencing.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I had kind of met her at a rough time, and for her, and my parents and her parents, they never missed a visit, and they ended up becoming very good friends. They got to talking like out in the waiting room, and like every visit. You get, I think it was 3 visits a week, and they would plan the visit. So like that me and Jen were together on our side, and that they were together on their side, and it was like a little like group family thing that we would do.
That's really cool.
I know, as well as we could do it. Just the nights, the nights are long there, and we would get to talking. And I am distantly related to Cody's family. So I don't have any personal experience with them. I'm not going to say I don't know them. I've never like actually met them, but through family, I've heard a bunch of stories, and my mom would always tell me to stay away from that clan. And just so I had just heard stories before. So even whenever I was like, Jen got comfortable talking to me about certain things, whenever I finally realized who Cody was, I was like, oh, okay, now it's making more sense to me. And, we just, and that's for why I don't think she is guilty. You can't trust anybody when you're in jail. You really can't. But her and I I'm the big sister. She's the little sister. I felt some type of bond with her, and just by talking to her and hanging out with her and hearing part of the story. And I understand it's her part of the story, but I read certain things in her discovery, and just like the things that you have pointed out in some of your videos that I was like how they were like repeating the same thing over and over to her again. There's like one transcript, and it was like 4 pages, and I was like, they just said the same thing to you like 10 times. And she was, she's, I know, and she just there's something that's too sweet about her soul that you can't tell me otherwise.
Beautifully said. Yes. Like when you hear about her, and if you were in one of the first couple episodes where I just put what the media said, you would think she is this tiny little monster that was able to shake a baby to death.
When I met my wife, and like if people were talking to me about this case, I tell them how my feelings. I'm not shy about it. And whenever I first met my wife, like we were talking and telling her a little bit about my past and everything, and I brought up Jen's case, and I the first thing I told her, I said, don't Google it. I said, if you Google it, you need to hear me first before you Google it. And Another thing about her, whenever we were in CCJ together, and I tell people all the time, like, they make her out to be this, like, monster from a movie that was, like, out to get this helpless little baby, when you get pissed off in jail a lot. And it's so hard to not take it out on the women that are in there with you, especially when they're causing most of the drama anyway. And the worst I ever saw Jen get mad was people were acting up, and they were threatening to take our visits and lock us down for the night. And like I said earlier, you didn't fuck with me in Jen's visits. And the worst thing I ever saw, she wouldn't swear. She does not swear. I don't know if she does now, but she wouldn't. She doesn't swear.
No.
And she walked out and kind of raised her voice a little bit. And I actually had to, I get my dad's voice. I have a huge voice. So I even kind of had to go, hey, to get everybody's attention, because she wasn't talking loud enough. But she stomped her foot and was like, I want my visit. You guys just need to knock it off. And I was like watching a little 5-year-old take a temper tantrum. That was the worst thing. It was the worst. I saw her cry. I saw her mad. I saw her happy. I saw her every emotion, and it doesn't add up.
Did the other girls in there, how did they treat her?
You had for the most part, pretty well. At least while I was there. I know she had a bit of a rough time in the beginning. She talked about it a little bit, and that's, like you said, Google her, and it was all over the news, and that's just that county. They don't have anything else to do, so they just sit and watch the news and gossip about people. So, like, at the beginning, I know it was hard for her, but whenever there was as good as you can make it in there. There was a group of us in there that we made it go pretty well. And the closer I got to getting out, she kept saying, like, I don't want you to go. She's like, this is the most comfortable I've felt in here. And wasn't just us. Like, you have to make it fun in there somehow. Like, you got to do something. And I'm a goof, so I would try to make people laugh as much as I could. And so, and my dad was a big teddy bear, and he would always, they would grab each other. They're not supposed to do that, but like my dad would talk to Jen, and I would talk to Julie, and like back and forth. And whenever we were getting closer for me to leave, my dad promised her that we would go to her sentencing, and so she could have, some faces in the crowd that knew the person she really was. And we were there before her parents, and it was definitely an experience to see it, but it was a very, very sad day. As crazy as this sounds, but this is how much she was a little sister to me. I was hoping that I wasn't going to get out until after her sentencing, because I wanted to be there for her when she got back. And that's the exact reason that my dad and I went, was I needed her to see that there are people on her side, and there are people out there that know what she's really like.
That's incredible.
Jen, I have said this to you in your letters, but you have such a huge army forming out here for you. And as hard as it is on the dark days to keep your head up, I'm here for you. My wife, who you have not met, is here for you. I got 3 little kids that are here for you. And we're going to fight for you till the end. And I love you.
Jennifer MEDZIE should be free. Our justice system is a disgrace. Here are 3 of my biggest tips. 1, always have an attorney present when speaking to law enforcement. 2, never, ever take a polygraph examination. And 3, never waive your preliminary hearing. Next time on Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors, day 1 of the trial. So many people have failed Sophia Margaret Hoffman. However, as of this episode, Jennifer MEDZIE is the only person to be convicted for this sweet baby girl's death. She is currently serving her 9th year, sitting in SCI Cambridge Springs, serving a 20 to 40 year sentence for third-degree murder. Thank you for your support, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to Can't Stop, Won't Stop Warriors. It's a free and easy way to help get more awareness out about the corruption happening throughout this country. And